Hey everybody, for those that may have missed class today or need a refresher, here's what we talked about regarding circles. Everyone received this notes page, and this is the 7th grade formula chart, or a piece of it, involving the circles. 6th grade is not responsible for this, but level 1 gets it because it's part of the 7th grade curriculum you cover. Okay, let's look at what it says here. Circumference of a circle. There's two formulas. Circumference equals 2 times pi times radius, or circumference equals pi times diameter. Whichever one you use depends on the information they give you in the question. And then we will later on find the area of a circle, and the area is going to equal pi times the radius squared, which means pi times radius times radius. And if you'd like to write that down, pi times radius, you are welcome to do so. Okay, in additional information, pi is approximately 3.14 or approximately 22 divided by 7, which is very similar to 3.14. Sometimes we'll use the 22 over 7 if our diameter is a multiple of 7, like 7, 14, 21, and so on. Okay, let's start with circle vocabulary. What you need to know first is that a circle is a set of all points in a plane. That means a two-dimensional flat shape. If it was three-dimensional, it would be a sphere. Alright, a circle is a set of all points in a plane that are the same distance from a given point called the center. Infinitely many points will make a circle. So for example, get my marker here. I have a point here, that'll be my center, and I make a point here, and I turn it, and a point here, and I turn it, and I turn it, and I keep doing that, and I do that infinite amount of times. This is very hard to do. In fact, it's horrible. This is supposed to be a circle, which is a set of points that are the same distance in every direction away from that center point. That's what they're talking about, infinite numbers, until this whole thing is colored in blue, and that's how many points we've made at the end here to make a circle. Oh, that was ugly. Okay, next. A blank is a line segment that passes through the center. This is called the diameter. So a diameter is a line segment that passes through the center of the circle and whose endpoints lie on the circle. A circle has infinitely many diameters that are the same length. So diameters. There we go. Okay, and if you look down at the bottom of the notes, we have examples here. So this point right there, that's called the center. And the diameter is the line segment that passes through the center of the circle and whose endpoints are on the circle. So let's label that diameter. There we go. Okay. Oops. Let's get in there. Center, diameter. Okay, the next dot. A blank is a line segment with one endpoint at the center of the circle and the other endpoint on the circle. That is called the radius. So from one endpoint at one endpoint at the center of the circle and the other endpoint on the circle, this is the radius. And a circle has infinitely many radii, R-A-D-I-I. And they are the same length. So the radius can go in every direction from the center out to the edge of the circle infinite number of times. And they will all be the same length. Now in a given circle, 2 of these radii equal 1 diameter, because it can pass all the way through and it becomes a diameter. Or take the diameter, cut it in half, and it is the radius. Now, what is the distance around the circle? This is called the circumference. C-I-R-C-U-M-F-E-R E-N-C-E. Oh, I ran out of room. So around the edge, let's go ahead and write circumference. It's like the perimeter of a circle, but to find the perimeter of like a rectangle, you add all the sides, but a circle doesn't have sides. So we have to use the formula to find the circumference, the distance around the circle. Okay. I want to give you some examples of the relationship of a diameter versus a circumference. Okay, what I have here is a Gatorade bottle, and I'm going to measure the bottom of this bottle with centimeters. Of course, I lost my ruler. Where'd it go? Oh, it fell on the floor. Found it. Okay. So I got a measuring tape here. Oops, that's the end. Go back to the beginning. Now the diameter from end to end through the center, it's approximately 9 centimeters. So make a little note down here on the table. Diameter is equal to about 9 centimeters. Okay. Now I'm going to measure the circumference all the way around. So if you see, I'm taking the tape and I'm coming around the edge here. And that's about in between 30 and 31, so we'll say it is 30.5. And, whoops. Oh, I got attacked by a bottle of Gatorade. Circumference is about 30.5, 30 and a half centimeters. Okay, now if I take the calculator on, clear, and I look for the relationship between how do I get from diameter to circumference or circumference to diameter, I can find that relationship by taking the circumference, 30.5, and dividing it by the diameter, 9. And that gives me 3.38 forever hat. I'll just call it 3.39. All right, let me find another circle. See what this relationship is. I have this pi magnet. Get my handy dandy measuring tool here. Back to the beginning. All right, across the center, it's about 5.5 centimeters. Okay, so let me make a little squiggle here. The diameter is about 5.5 centimeters. Okay, now this is tricky. I'm going to measure the circumference. Whew, wish me luck. Here we go. Okay, so around the edge. Oh, this is hard to do. I need one more hand. I'm okay. I think I got it. Maybe. Okay, so around the edge, let me just put it down. There we go. Okay, what I'm looking at is about 18-ish, 17, I'll call it 18 centimeters. Circumference is about 18 centimeters. Okay, come here, calculator. If I take that circumference, clear it out, 18, and divide it by the diameter, 5.5, I get 3.27, and the 27 repeats forever. Up here I got 3.8, and the 8 repeated forever. So these are pretty similar to each other. Now because I'm human, sorry, I did not measure these laser point accurate like. I used a very rudimentary tool, so my answers aren't exactly going to be pi, but what I was trying to discover was the relationship between the diameter and the circumference. So on the back part of your notes, let's zoom in a little bit here, the ratio of the circumference to the diameter. The circumference to the diameter is known as pi, Pi. And the way we find that is you take any circle's circumference and divide it by its diameter, and it will always give you pi. Now mine was not 100% accurate. It was just an estimation. It got pretty close to pi. And commonly values we use for pi are 22/7 in certain situations, or 3.14. Now my numbers were 3.2 in both situations, but it's pretty close to 3.14. I was trying to get as accurate as I could, being human. Okay, equations and formulas used to find circumference. These we have pulled from here and here on the front side. So circumference equals pi times diameter. And if you recall, how many diameters about did it take to get to the circumference? The circumference of a circle is a little more than 3 of the diameters. What is the relationship between a diameter and a radius? The diameter is actually equal to 2 times the radius. Let's go back over here. See how the radius was halfway across and the diameter is all the way across? If I double the radius, I get a diameter. Okay, now circumference is pi times diameter when they give me the diameter. But if they don't give me the diameter and they give me the radius, I'm simply going to do 2 times the radius to get the diameter and then times that by pi. So the circumference of a circle is a little more than how many radii? Okay, there was a great picture on our presentation, and it had a box like this showing the circumference. And then that box was divided into 3 boxes below, and each of those boxes was a diameter, a diameter, a diameter. Then in every single diameter, you would get 2 radius. So then this box below, in this diameter, you had 2 radius, 2 radius, and this diameter also had 2 radius. So in the entire circumference, there's about 3 diameters, and in the entire circumference, there's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the radii. Okay, so flip back over on this side. In order to get from diameter to circumference, you times it by about 3, known as pi. 3.14 is about 3. To get from the radius to the diameter, you times 2. To get from the diameter back to the radius, you divide by 2. To get from the circumference back to the diameter, you divide by 3. And then even more so, to get from circumference back to radius, you divide by 3 and 2, you just divide by 6. Then to get from radius to the circumference, you times it by 2 and then 3, or go from the radius to the circumference times 6. Okay. So here's some example problems. What is the circumference of a circle whose diameter measures 7 centimeters? Well, they're giving me the diameter. So what I do first is WTF, write the formula. Circumference is equal. Now what formula will I use? Pi d or 2 pi r? They give me the diameter, so use pi times d. Okay, I'm going to switch pins. Now I'm going to substitute the diameter that they gave me in place of the d. The diameter was 7, so circumference is equal to pi times 7. Now, pi can be a couple of different things depending on your situation. If we are estimating very vaguely, we could say pi is about 3. So we would do 3 times the diameter, 7. So the circumference is approximately 21 centimeters. Or we can use 3.14 or 22 over 7. In this situation, because the diameter is a multiple of 7, I would use the 22 over 7. So I would take 22 over 7 times the diameter, 7 over 1. And then, if you notice, you can cross-reduce your 7s. 7 divided by 7 is 1 and 1. So now, what I'm left with, top times the top, 22, bottom times the bottom. Oh, I'm sorry, 1 times 1 is 1. So 22 over 1, the circumference is about 22 centimeters. So anytime your diameter is like 7 or 14 or 21, 28, 35, so on, you're going to want to use the 22 over 7 because you're cross-reducing, and it makes it very efficient and easy to solve. Now, if I were to solve it with 3.14, let me check my calculator and see if I would have gotten close to that answer. 3.14 times 7, 21.98, very close to the 22. Okay, let's go to this last one. When you leave an answer in terms of pi, you're going to leave the pi there. This is the most accurate answer. Circumference is not an estimate here. It is a hard equals. The circumference is equivalent to pi times 7. Leave it in terms of pi. Do not change pi to anything but the symbol pi. And that is your accurate answer. All right, number 2. What is the circumference of a circle whose radius measures 1.5 meters? Okay, well, since they gave me the radius, I'm going to use this formula. Circumference is equal to 2 pi r. Write the formula first. Now, let's plug in the numbers. The number for the radius is 1.5. Circumference equals 2 times pi times 1.5. Hey, didn't we say to get from the radius to the circumference, we times it by 6? And if pi is about 3, isn't 2 times 3 6? So isn't that 6 times the radius? Dun, dun, dun. Coincidence? I think not. Okay, but let's solve it in this direction here. Take your radius and double it, and that gives you the diameter. So now we're going to simplify. Circumference is 2 times 1.5, which is 3, times pi. Or pi times 3, if you want to write it the other way. Now, what if pi is equivalent to 3? Easy. I just do 3 for the diameter times 3 for pi, and that gives me 9, what are we in? Meters. Don't square it. This is not area. Okay, now what about 3.14 22 over 7? Well, if the diameter is 3, I'm going to use 3.14 because it is not a multiple of 7. So take your diameter 3 times pi 3.14 and then work it out. I'm going to put a little space down here. 3.14 times 3, that gives me 12. Carry the 1. 4. 3 and 3 is 9. Whoop, whoop. Womp, womp. I get 9.42 meters. And finally, the most accurate answer, just leave it in terms of pi. So circumference is pi times 3, or you could put 3 times pi, but you have to leave the pi there. Okay, and then what we did is we started our homework worksheet. Sorry, I had to get it off the table here. Okay. Directions. Find the approximate circumference of each circle. Write the formula in the first line. What did I say? Distribute values for R or D, radius or diameter, on the second line, and write the approximate answer on the last line with the correct label. So like centimeters, inches, millimeters, whatever they're asking for. All right, so here we go. First, write the formula. It's given me diameter, so I'm going to use pi times D. Then I'm going to substitute 100 in place of the diameter, so pi times 100. Now I'm going to approximate. Instead of using the exact pi, I'm going to use 3.14. So 3.14 times 100. And anytime you times by 100, you move the decimal 2 places to the right. Final answer, circumference is approximately 314 centimeters. Now on number 2, they give us the radius, so I'm not going to use this formula. I'm going to use the 2 pi r. Circumference is equivalent to 2 times pi times radius. Plug in my numbers. 2 times pi times my radius is 1.5. Then I'm going to simplify the 2 and the 1.5. That's going to be 3. And instead of pi, I'm going to use 3.14. Hey, didn't we just do this in the notes? We sure did. Our answer was 9.42 inches. Okay, you try the same thing for number 3. Answer questions 4. And then down here, they want us to use 22 over 7. Here's why. Write the formula. This is the radius. So we got 2 times pi times radius for circumference. Plug in the numbers. 2 times pi, and the radius is 3.5. Now what is 2 times 3.5? That would be 7. And instead of pi, they want us to use 22 over 7. So that'd be 7 over 1 times 22 over 7. And then when you switch pins here, cross reduce, 7 and 7 become 1 and 1. That means our circumference is equivalent to 22 meters. Boy, did that look familiar. Okay, you try the rest of these problems. The front, as well as the back, and we will go over the answers tomorrow in class. Have a great night. Stop video.